Baseball is officially back from the All-Star break. Did you miss it? Take a look at the MLB's leaders as we go into the second half of the season. Aaron Judge's name on there a handful of times, which is appropriate given the fact that we're about to spend a lot of time breaking down his legacy. Batting average, hits, on-base percentage, slugging, you name it, Aaron Judge can do it all. And while he's closing in on this year's home run leader in Cal Raleigh, he's also chasing a little bit of history in the Bronx. He's already the fastest player to hit 350 homers, and now he's on pace to pass some of New York's greatest. Lou Gehrig, Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle, maybe even Babe Ruth. That one could be a stretch, but certainly some high praise coming from this article on The Athletic that caught our attention. Shout out to Ian Connor for writing this story all about Aaron Judge's stats and his legacy, but this is what got our attention. Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle, at least one of these titans is toast. Of course, talking about the legacy of these players, relating it to Aaron Judge. So who better to talk about the legacy in the Bronx than our GM, Jim Bowden. Jim, I just want to open it up with your thoughts on the article. What do you think about Aaron Judge and where he's heading in his future?
Well, I think what we're talking about, if he continues at this pace for the rest of his career, which is a question, but after 10 years, right now he's on pace to become the greatest right-handed hitter that ever lived, let alone the greatest Yankee right-handed hitter ever. I think what he's on pace to do and is realistic is that he could become the second greatest Yankee ever behind Babe Ruth. He also has a chance to surpass Babe Ruth's home runs as well in his career if he continues to stay healthy. You know, he's averaging 52 home runs a year over the first 10 years. That's amazing when you think Babe Ruth averaged 46, Lou Gehrig 37, Mickey Mantle 36, and Joe DiMaggio 34. And it's also pretty incredible to think that right now in his career, he has a better on-base and slugging percentage than Joe DiMaggio, and as well a better slugging percentage already as Mickey Mantle. So I think when you look at the Mount Rushmore, if he ages well, which none of us know in baseball, sometimes you can age well into the 40s like David Ortiz, and sometimes it catches up to you in your mid-30s. So only time is going to tell. But the way he keeps himself in shape, how athletic he is, the fact that at some point in his career he'll be able to DH, it's realistic to think that by the time he's done playing, that only Babe Ruth will stand in his way in terms of the overall numbers he put up. And remember, Babe Ruth played 22 years, and Aaron Judge didn't start his career in the big leagues until he was 25, so it's one disadvantage that he has.
He was asked about catching Babe Ruth's home run numbers at 659, and he said, quote, "We can dream, we can hope." So we are all hoping, we are all dreaming maybe that this could be a reality. Jim, but you know probably better than anyone here that when we think about legacy, ring culture has been such a big talking point across all sports, not just in baseball, but, you know, in all the sports. So when you think about the amount of rings that Judge has, he doesn't have any yet. That's not to say that he won't. But just looking at some of the greats that he is in conversations with, right? Joe DiMaggio has 9, Mickey Mantle, Babe Ruth has 7, Lou Gehrig has 6. I mean, like, what's the argument there? How much impact will that have? Because it feels kind of unrealistic that he catches some of these guys for rings.
He has no chance of catching any of those guys for rings, and it's not important, right? Those guys all played on Yankee teams that were so dominant compared to everybody else. That can't happen in 2025. And I think when we talk about rings, I'll buy that argument in the NBA. I'll buy the argument if we're going to argue Michael Jordan and LeBron James and the greatest NBA players, just because you got 5 guys on the floor at a time. I'll argue that for quarterbacks in the NFL, it matters because the quarterback is the most important position in sports. And so I'll argue that, you know, Tom Brady's rings, yeah, that does matter. But I think in terms of baseball, we've seen some of the greatest players and Hall of Famers that never even made the playoffs, let alone get to the World Series. And it's not because of their performance, it's the team that they're on. They, you know, Babe Ruth is one of 25, and right now Aaron Judge is one of 26. You can't by yourself get your team to the playoffs or the World Series or get rings. So I think that's kind of an overrated argument.
It always is. We had this same conversation with LeBron James and what his legacy looks like and all the things. It's all about what these players are doing, and it's really incredible. We do know, Jim, that Judge at least has a shot to get one of those this year. We're on collision course for what could be a rematch of the Fall Classic from a year ago. The Yankees get the second half of the season at the Braves to get things started. I know it was kind of a whirlwind there the last month or so for the Yankees to end the season, but they won 5 of their last 7. How do they keep it going?
Yeah, so for the New York Yankees, they're going to be in a race all year because the Toronto Blue Jays, the Boston Red Sox, Tampa Bay Rays, they're all legitimate teams. I think we're going to see 3 teams come out of the East in the playoffs. One's going to win the division, 2 are going to get wild card. So for the New York Yankees, they have got to improve their pitching. That's going to be the key as they start the second half tonight. And ironically, tonight, they're going with a bullpen game. That's not what you want. When you just had 3 days off for the All-Star game, you don't want a bullpen game. But they've got to move Cam Sklitler back. Max Fried has the blister on the finger. They got to move him back. And so they're in a situation where tonight they're forced to do a bullpen game. Not ideal. Now, I talked to Aaron Boone this afternoon, the manager of the New York Yankees. I asked him about Lewis Hill. Remember, Lewis Hill was not only the rookie pitcher of the year last year in the American League, he was arguably their best pitcher in the regular season. I asked him about him. He's going to throw a rehab start tonight. He's expected to go around 55 pitches. Then, if all goes well, he's going to pitch next Wednesday, and that's a Double-A tonight, by the way. If all goes well, they're going to move him to Triple-A next Wednesday, where they're going to hope for him to throw 65 pitches. Now, if that goes well, he'll either make one more rehab start or he'll go to the big leagues, where he'll then be stretched out to 70 to 75 pitches. They'll make that decision based on how he pitches tonight and Wednesday. Good news, though, is he's coming back. That's huge. Also, he told me 2 of their relievers, Fernando Cruz and Mark Leiter Jr., both are throwing, although they're a little bit further behind Heel. They're probably a couple of weeks away, best case scenario. So, you know, I think that's key. Now, the other thing, Haley, to keep in mind, the trade deadline now less than 2 weeks away. He wouldn't comment with me about what their plans are, but I have been talking to GMs in both leagues, as you know, over the last several days, and I will continue to do so until the deadline. So this is what I've learned and what the Yankees are looking for. They are looking for a starting pitcher. They're looking for a relief pitcher, and they're looking for a third baseman. That is what I'm being told. Now, if they get a starter, they may not also get a reliever. So it's going to all depend on, you know, if it's a back-of-the-rotation starter, then they might get a bigger reliever. If they get a big starter, then they probably won't get a reliever. So it's going to be something in that combination depending on what they can do. And they're looking at third base. And although there's been a lot of rumors about Eugenio Suarez, because it does make sense, that 30-home-run bat at third base in the Bronx, but I've also learned from talking to some GMs that there are some teams that are concerned about his defense at third, and you know how important defense is to the Yankees. So I wouldn't be surprised if they took some of their outfield depth and used that to make a contender for contender deal to solve third base, maybe instead of trading for Suarez of Arizona or Brian Hayes of Pittsburgh or Ryan McMahon of the Rockies.
So we got some moves potentially in the works there that could help them out. They come into the second half of the season minus 130 to win the AL East. I believe they're 2 games back here. What do you think? Can they figure it out? Can they win this division if they make all those moves, Jim?
I think so, but I think the key is going to be the next 2 weeks, what moves they make. You know, I think the pressure's on GM Brian Cashman. And by the way, it's on the Red Sox GM Craig Breslow, and it's on the Blue Jays GM Ross Atkins. I think all 3 teams need to go get a starter. So, you know, which team is going to be able to get out there and improve their teams? Because right now the teams are really equal. But for the Yankees to win, the front office has to go get pitching. I trust Brian Cashman will. We'll wait and see.
All right, there's a look at the AL East standings there, Jim. We appreciate the time. As always, the second half of the season getting underway tonight as you take a look at the notable games getting underway. As I just mentioned it, the Yankees going to take on the Braves in a 3-game set on the road. You also have the Dodgers, who are favorites to win the World Series, by the way. Could see the Yankees and the Dodgers once again in the Fall Classic.